You're listening to Ice.
Okay, all right. I've had enough of this. I'm getting off the show.
Dixon.
Absolute trash. This is, if I heard this, I'd be like, this is absolute garbage. I wouldn't even consider rating it.
Sit down and buckle up.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Records and Rants. We got a nice little episode for you guys today. Probably a surprise for our longtime listeners because we don't really cover this kind of stuff, but we're going to get into it. But before I could go any further whatsoever, I have to introduce the other host of this show, Dixon. How are you?
Ice, great to be back. You're right. This is kind of a one-off episode. Not a one-off episode, but
it's a departure from what we usually do.
Yeah, departure. Yeah, because we're usually kind of we cover everything, but we're mostly. It seems like we cover a lot of kind of a limited genre. Would you say? Like, we're kind of in the same wheelhouse for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. For the most part, I would say, yeah.
And, I don't want to make you kind of blue. But I imagine this album we're going to talk about might have cheered you up if you were feeling blue. Or maybe it had the opposite effect. I'm not sure.
I'll tell you what, Dixon. I'm going to say it right off the bat. Usually do this with albums that you show me that I really enjoyed. I love this. Absolutely. It was out of nowhere. Not even on my radar. I had heard of Miles Davis before, but I tell you what, listening to this album was fantastic. It was an experience. And I know it's cliche. I use this term a lot, but I feel like when an album and music can evoke emotion, I feel like that's some of the best music that you could possibly listen to. And this absolutely does it.
I'm glad to hear that. This is a departure because we haven't covered jazz before. We haven't gotten into jazz really. I haven't talked about Miles Davis, and if you haven't figured out by now, we're talking about Miles Davis, Kind of Blue.
Oh yes,
the seminal album from 1959. So you said you were kind of familiar with Miles Davis. You're not really a big movie fan, right? You haven't watched a ton of movies. You like Star Wars, you like the Avengers. Don't you like that? Don't you like that Avengers?
I do. I don't like Avengers. you frequently tag me with Avengers, but that's not in my wheelhouse. I do enjoy Star Wars though. So
what's that movie with the raccoon that talks? You're into that stuff. Like, you like that talking raccoon movie.
Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy. You like the Guardians of the Galaxy.
I am Groot.
Yeah. You probably have a Groot sticker on your laptop.
Oh, okay. If you ever see me with a Groot sticker, Dixon, I'll tell you what to do to me.
Captain America shield on your back windshield, like
the Incredible Hulk hands just sitting on my shelf.
Yeah, like definitely. That's your deal.
Yeah, that's my jam. DC not so much. Marvel though,
I don't even know why that's funny. You know what was a really good movie that was The Batman with Art Pats.
I heard that was good. I heard that was good.
I think that I'm saying it right now. I think that Robert Pattinson is the ultimate Batman of all time.
Really? Because I can't even see him as a Batman. I really can't.
That's what you think.
Yeah.
Now the movie is dark. It's literally dark. You have a hard time seeing it.
Oh, great! I love that.
But it's also sort of like an emo vibe to Batman, and it works incredibly well.
Okay, so it's very moody.
Yes, it's movie. Yes, exactly. So going back to what I started out with, have you seen Billy Madison, Adam Sandler?
No, I have not.
See, I had a feeling you wouldn't have, but when it comes to Miles Davis, I think everybody knows Miles Davis. There's a scene in Billy Madison, every millennial at least, because I feel like everybody's seen that.
I'm sure. Yeah, they definitely have. I know this is a frequent movie. It was quoted to me, and I'm just like, what? Yeah, I just don't understand.
Yeah, very quoted. Yeah, Billy Madison sticker on your truck.
What would that even look? What would that even look like?
Who knows? So there's a scene of Billy Madison. Billy Madison, he goes through Adam Sandler goes through the grades of school. I don't really remember why. It's very kind of a foreign concept. Now it would be a child abuse case, immediately arrested.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
they're on a field trip, and the kid, urinates in his pants, and Billy Madison, to make him not feel so bad, pours water on his pants to make it look like he also pee-peed himself.
Oh, how nice of him.
Yeah, and he says, hey, everybody, look at how cool I am. You're only cool if you pee your pants, right? And everybody's like, wow, this is so cool. And so there's this old woman in the film, and she says, if peeing your pants is cool, then I'm Miles Davis. So, a classic line that millennials probably have no idea what it even means. They have no clue. But yeah, so I think everybody's heard the name Miles Davis. So Miles Davis, this album, Kind of Blue, was one of the first vinyl records I purchased like a few years ago. Well, probably 10 plus years ago. And I had it on CD. And I used to put it in my car, and I was dating a girl at the time. This is when I was in college. And we used to put on the CD and like drive around. And then sometimes we'd stop and M out a little bit to Miles Davis.
Wait, what? you engage in premarital emming out?
Yeah, pre-emmed emming out. Nice girl. Hope she's doing well.
Yeah. Possible future friend of the show.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so that was my experience with this. But this, and I guess how I got into this album, because I don't have a huge knowledge of Miles Davis's catalog, is that I knew it was something I should listen to, I have to listen to, because it's hailed as one of, if not the greatest jazz album of all time. It was ranked by, I think it was number 12 on Rolling Stone's list of 500 greatest albums. 5 times platinum in 2019. And this is according to Wikipedia, Kind of Blue is regarded by many critics as Davis's masterpiece. And I was surprised to see this. This is the 33rd studio album by Miles Davis. Didn't realize he was so prolific in his career. But I don't have a huge knowledge of jazz, particularly this mode of jazz, which is coincidentally called modal jazz. Yep. Yeah, modal, right? But I like this, and it sounds like you liked it as well.
Yeah, so I mean that was a fantastic intro, Dixon.
Okay.
I love the Billy Madison bit though. Pretty funny. I'm gonna have to use that joke now. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this album was fantastic. Like I said, I think even if you don't like jazz, you would probably like this album. But going back to what you said, this being modal jazz, I believe that this was kind of almost, I guess I won't even say made by Miles Davis, but certainly probably made popular. And I think he combined modal jazz with his composition in this to give it that certain sound. Now,
right,
I found this so interesting. I was looking at this part of it on Wiki, and he says typically have a typical chord progression. Like you'll be in the key of whatever, C major, say, right, like B minor. I'm being very like layman here, but I'm sure people listening who have a better understanding of music. But anyway, in typical music, you'll have chord progressions, and then you kind of solo over those chord progressions, but you're set in that scale essentially. You're only playing the notes of C major. That's it.
Okay. Right.
With modes, you could take different modes, and there's different names of them. There's like Mixolydian. There's Phrygian. There's all different kind of modes attached to a tonal key, which could be like the key of C or C major or whatever. You go through the different modes, and essentially C could be in a bunch of different modes, and all you're doing is taking that major scale. Then if you go from one mode to the other, you're kind of shifting the notes, shifting a couple notes around. That's a very, very basic way to describe it. So like you're still in that key, but it has a different sound based on the mode. And the super interesting thing that Miles Davis did with it is that he combined different modes into each song. So he has a massive amount of notes essentially that he could play around to. He's no longer hampered by the chord progression. He could just do essentially whatever he wants, which is I mean, and you could hear it in this. The improvisation it's next level, and the different feelings that it evokes throughout the song. I think it really goes to show you that modal composition strengths that it has. I didn't mean to ramble there.
That was so good. That was such a succinct way to describe it, and stuff that I didn't really know. And what's amazing to me is that you were kind of saying you had that improvisation. It sounds like what I was reading is that the modes, you're setting kind of the tone, or I'm using tone as not literally. You're kind of setting the keys where you want it to stay, but then that mode lets you kind of have freedom. So it's kind of like, okay, we're playing in this key, but do what you want here.
Exactly.
And which is so cool.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And like I said, the cool thing is that when you go from mode to mode, it doesn't really switch around all that much. Like I said, you're kind of just moving, notes slightly within that scale, essentially. So that's how it all works together. That's how it all sounds. Yeah, cohesive, but the mood kind of switches. It's very the best way I could tell people to listen to it is go to the Wikipedia page and listen to the different modes first, and you'll understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, for sure, and that's what's really kind of cool about this, because that was one of the comments I've had, is that all these songs kind of have the same sound happening, and I think that's just it's intentional. It's based on instruments, based on musician, whatever it might be. But each vibe is different. Each resolution is different. The tone, the mode is all different. And I think the album is set up perfectly with the song "Freddie the Freeloader."
Yes.
And you put that song on. I listened to this album because I haven't listened to this album in probably maybe 5 or 6 years, and I was listening to it a couple times the last couple of days. And the last time I listened to it was yesterday. Driving home, and you put this on, and it makes your life seem a little bit more important than it actually is, and it kind of gives you that noir feel, like nobody knows what I'm up to, nobody has any idea.
Yes,
like this is America. We can do what we want.
I love it. I love it.
Cigarettes inside,
yes.
Whatever. And that's kind of the vibe you put out, and I think it's perfectly bookend. By the end song. What is the title? Flamenco
Sketches.
Yeah, Flamenco Sketches, right. Perfectly bookend at the end, because then you have sort of, to me, that's a reflection piece. Somber, things coming to a close. More of a meditation kind of thing. And not to disrupt our track discussion, but I was amazed when I found this out years ago, but John Coltrane was on this album, and John Coltrane went on to have his own solo career. He's a saxophonist, played the saxophone, had the John Coltrane. He had his own band, his very prolific career. Mm-hmm. Died relatively young. He expanded upon the use of modes and really made them evident in his compositions. And he really experimented on the spirituality side. So he had all these different things happening, and he would incorporate Hindu chants, and he studied the Bible, the Quran, all these things with the same level of intensity. And so his whole belief was that you experience spirituality, you experience God, you experience salvation through sound. So he's actually venerated as a saint in an African-American church that's active and has follows some of the Roman Catholic rites, which is pretty interesting. And it was interesting because I read an article about it, that this isn't just like a goofy fandom, or oh wow, John Coltrane, he's like Jesus. They believe, just like Coltrane, that you have spirituality, salvation, connectedness to God through sounds. And you listen to albums like Kind of Blue, and you can kind of believe that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to go back to it. What it evokes out of you, and I feel like you could really go down a spiritual path by listening to something like this. Not to oversell this album, but I really agree with that. I really feel that.
Cool.
And just the way that all these guys play together. Like you said, Coltrane was on here, and he's on one of my favorite songs on here, "Blue and Green," which I think is
great.
Probably my favorite song on here. Coltrane was on the sax, but also Bill Evans. Bill Evans on the piano.
Yes,
that was fantastic as well. And I didn't really expect that. I thought, when looking at the cover, I'm like, going to be like a horn heavy kind of
Right.
album. But those little piano like
Oh,
trills in there were just amazing.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And I think that the piano to me in the music is like the lyrics. If we were gonna,
Yeah,
um,
that's
yeah,
interesting. That's it. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I actually have to correct myself. The opening track is "So What,"
Yes.
and this reminded me of my point I was going to make with the piano being lyrics. If you could kind of feel the lyric through the piano, and I love how the volume, intentional or not, of the piano itself, it kind of changes at different parts of the song, depending upon where you're at, and it's a little bit louder, a little bit lower, a little bit softer, more subtle, not accompanied by the trumpet or the sax alongside it. And that to me is, like you said, the surprising how well, not surprising how well it works, but just surprising to hear it. And then I think that translates to the lyrical portion of what is kind of going on alongside the horns and everything else.
Yeah, it's just like a different like aspect of the song. And like you said, I feel like it could fit in for the vocals. Everything else
Mhm.
around is kind of swelling with the rest of the way.
Yeah,
Just the
for sure.
way that it's all put together is just, it's very, to me, and this is another cliche term that I always use, it very raw. I feel like this was just, they said, hey, we're going in, we're doing this, we're doing it live essentially, and that's what they.
Yeah, right.
I heard,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is true, but did they record all these songs in just one take? They just went in and did it.
I believe it. And it was only recorded in 2 days. It was like they recorded it. If I'm looking
Yeah.
at the article, yeah, it was 2 days in one studio.
Yeah,
And
that's absolutely crazy.
and when you consider the size of the production, the size of the sounds, what's going on, you think, okay, you're talking um, Wall of Sound era, Phil Spector, California, West Coast. The idea that this studio is an instrument. These guys went in there and they played it, and that was it.
Yeah.
That was all. And you wonder how you were talking about the improvisation aspect. If people could go in and say, well, let's just try this again, and
Yeah.
how different it would sound or what it would be like,
That was one thing that I was very curious about. Okay, I'm listening to these songs, and can you go up to Miles Davis and say, "Hey, play Blue and Green"? Would he be able to do that? That's what I want to know. I'm not knocking him or anything, but is all this improv? Which I think it is.
So yeah, I think that's where, because there's always that with certain artists and certain bands and things, like apparently our favorite Tame Impala, you have to see them live. The live experience is better than the albums, right?
Yes.
The Grateful Dead, you want to see them live. You don't want to hear the album. Jazz, I think, is one of those things that probably translates better in person too when you see jazz live. I think jazz is the opposite effect in that your album tracks are probably hot and really good and like, okay, this is what I want to do. And then your live shows are a recreation of that, but there's got to be some variation.
Yes.
To hit all those notes exactly, I think I don't think you'd want to do that. I think you want to kind of follow where you're going and what you're doing, depending on the type of jazz you're playing. So I think that the album leads to the experience, which then creates even better experience because you know what's happening, but it's maybe sounds a little bit different, a little bit better, or a different translation.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense, and again, I mean, that could be a reason why he has so many albums. He might just go in and say, okay, this is playing in this key, and this is what I want to make, and I have it in my head, so let's just go for it.
No, for sure, and he's and Miles Davis is an artist, and Miles Davis in his discography, which is huge. He's one that I'd love to take a deep dive at. I think it would be so frightening and overwhelming to even consider diving into Miles Davis as an artist that you have to take it album by album, because this just 11 years down the road from here, he records B Word's Brew, which is
I know. I saw it. I'm like, what?
Which is everybody. That album is the other album you have to listen to. If you know nothing about jazz, you should listen to these two albums. Kind of Blue and Bitches Brew, which is a totally different mode. He has different sounds. The ideas are still the same. How he's working his palette, if you will, is still the same. But it's a total evolution and sort of a change up from what he was doing definitely earlier in his career into now when he's getting into modes and those kinds of things. So, as an artist, and then in the '80s, he started getting into more of a popular sound, which critics didn't take well to, from what I was reading. But it was the most prolific era of his career in terms of stadium show sales,
Yep.
album sales. He was doing a visual art at that point. He had a really different look at that point. He had like this really scary, like you're like, oh my gosh, Miles Davis with these sunglasses on and he had longer hair. It's like, oh my god, this guy's just gonna beat me up just by looking at me, with kind of like these multicolored shirts.
Yes, I'm looking at him now. This is quite a style here.
Yeah. And what's amazing is all these guys, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, they were all addicted to heroin. And you
really? Well, that came out of nowhere. I didn't know. I didn't realize that. Yeah. It was maybe cocaine, but like, heroin.
and, when you consider the fact that, like, you wonder, because you see it in the music that we've talked about, the music that we're more familiar with. Some of that classic rock, definitely some of the early '60s things I've introduced you to. You kind of have that idea that, okay, well, the songs flowed from the experience they were having, either psychedelics or whatever it was. Heroin is, from what I understand, is a pretty unforgiving drug.
Yeah, I feel like you can't really think. Like I feel like you can't be. It's not creative.
Exactly, and I wonder how the heroin affected projects like this, because, like, now I understand the whole thing with, now it seems like we're going off into a tangent about heroin, but I understand that if in this society, this day and age, you can get Narcan, no questions asked, right? If you're OD, you have the Narcan thing.
Yep.
And they have now the Good Samaritan laws, that if you Narcan somebody, they can't harm you, they can't sue you, because in theory, well, not in theory, I guess it's been seen that if you Narcan somebody, they're going to be pissed at you because you just ruined the best high of their life.
Yeah.
So you wonder, even though heroin, from what I've heard, is not all that pleasant, it must be that good that these guys are willing to almost get to the brink of death rather than be revived. So,
yeah, that's really saying something.
Yeah, it must be one of the best things ever.
Apparently, everyone makes it seem so bad, but maybe it's really great.
Yeah, if you're willing to just shoot up and maybe lose an arm,
yeah,
it's like, okay, we must be onto something here. So maybe that the effect of the heroin unlocks you a little bit, but I can't imagine going into a studio high on heroin saying, like, let's just like see what happens, or maybe that's just kind of how it flows too.
I don't know. I honestly thought that heroin just made you literally just like a drone. Like you're just laying there feeling pleasures.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if Miles Davis looked like this the whole time, but in the '80s, maybe it really hit him, because he looks kind of scary. I'm not gonna lie. I hate to say it.
Yeah. No, for sure, and it's interesting, and now you look at, going back to heroin. You have guys like James Taylor. James Taylor, who we should do an episode on. He is absolutely derided in the music industry because he basically came from rich parents, was doing drugs and writing songs on his father's dime for like years, for decades.
Oh God!
And James Taylor in the '70s kind of looked not all that great. He kind of looked like unkempt, like he smelled bad.
Yeah.
He's kind of gaunt, and he had like that like kind of straggly hair in the back. And so you compare James Taylor's songs that he's writing, which could put you to sleep, on heroin, and then you have Miles Davis and John Coltrane and these guys who are making this music on heroin. It seems like there's no common link into the path that heroin is going to take you as a musician, evidently.
Yeah, it's a roll of the dice, essentially.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that all kind of correlates, and but it would have been interesting to see some of these songs live, at any point in his career, to see the improvisation factor and how it translates live.
Yeah, definitely. And I really want to go back to this Bitches a Brew. I'd really like to listen to this jazz fusion, jazz rock, avant-garde jazz, avant-funk, and psychedelia. This sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, it's no, I've heard snippets, and it's one of those albums. It's one of those albums you have to sit down and listen to. It's like reading a book. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say it's an hour and a half long. Watching a movie.
No, yeah, for sure. And it's like I said, I think you have to be in a certain mindset to kind of appreciate and kind of see where it is.
Okay, I see.
And I knew when I first picked up Kind of Blue, like I said, it was one of those albums that you have to listen to just to experience it, just to feel it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't disappoint. 45 minutes, a few tracks.
Yeah.
But what it lacks in length or size, it doesn't translate to the size of the sounds and kind of how the feeling it may express.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It felt like a big album despite being only a few songs, and I think it was just because
Right.
of the hard hitting composition, feeling that it evoked. It had all those things that usually you wouldn't get in a small, shorter album like this. And just like you said at the very beginning, kind of goes through steps. Each song is like a different part of the whole story, and then that resolution at the end. Flamenco Sketches.
Yeah.
Just like it just ties the knot like perfectly. It's
Yeah.
This is hard to talk about in a way that trying to express what it felt like listening to the sound, because I mean that's all this is. There's no lyrics behind it, obviously.
Right.
I would say that this is absolutely an album you have to sit down, listen to. Boy, maybe have a nice drink, something like that. Maybe nice smoke if you're into that kind of thing. Then just relax, and I guarantee it'll be amazing experience.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like you said, because Blue and Green. We'll go back to that song because I know that's one you really liked, and I like that too. You have this kind of noir feel throughout the whole album. Like I said, it's kind of that noir. It's kind of that 1940s, 50s, standing under a lamppost in New York City, flipping a coin. Yeah, yeah. See,
Yeah. Yeah.
My Tommy gun has a different story for you, but it's
I can see you living in that time.
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%.
You're perfect.
Yeah, with those big baggy pants and the suits, and
I can totally see it.
and stuff. I could go for that. Just constant cigarettes, just cigarette after cigarette, just never smoking in your sleep.
You don't have water on your nightstand. It's just a glass of scotch.
I love it. Yeah, the hard stuff. See,
Yeah.
but Blue Green, it reminds me of it's for all the kind of headspace that these songs put you in. Blue and Green, I think it reminds me of like driving, like you're on a strip in Los Angeles or somewhere. You're in Europe and you're driving, and you kind of have the experience, the sounds, the feel of okay, you're in a car, you're heading somewhere. Maybe it's a Saturday night and things are happening around you. That's the kind of vibe that I get from that song.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's olden days or whatever, but it's nighttime. The street lamps are flashing through the car as you go by. Like that's what I feel like listening.
I think it's something to be said. I think this is the oldest in terms of years, album that we've covered. I don't think we've ever. I don't think we've covered.
Good point.
Well, maybe some Elvis stuff, but we 1959, and this album still holds up. It was 5 times certified platinum in 2019.
That's incredible.
Yeah, the iconicity, the groundbreaking effect, the fact that it still holds up is just an incredible thing. And you have to talk about Miles Davis as a genius. You have to talk about him as the greatest, if not the greatest, jazz musician of all time. One of the greatest musicians. Period. Definitely in America.
Yep.
And it holds up. And here's a great example that you aren't really all that familiar with jazz. I have a very cursory familiarity, but it you listen to it and it's like, okay, this is good, and I see why it's good, which is really, really kind of cool.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. It's a genre that I've literally never listened to before, and I, just listening to it, actually sitting down with an album and I absolutely appreciate it.
For sure. So, do we want to talk about a rating? Because I want to talk about a little bit of a rant today. Maybe not a rant, but a little bit of an update.
Okay, we could
after we do this. So if we want to give it a rating,
let's do a quick rating on let's say just this album, simply because I don't think we could tackle Miles Davis as a whole unless we do a deep dive on him. Yeah, so
I think you're right.
Going off this album, you wanna take a crack at it first?
Okay, sounds good. So I think, we're always trying to be objective. We always say this. And I like to rate albums out of 10, 10 being the best. You have to consider all these things. You have to consider literally the mode Miles Davis is working in, the personnel on the album, all those ancillary factors, the ranking by Rolling Stone, the fact that it's held up after all these years, the sales, everything. You have to consider this one of the greatest albums of all time. I think this has to be honestly like a 9.5 out of 10
Wow.
in reality. And I'm judging that based on considering the whole genre of jazz, considering all the music I've listened to. It has to be up there. I can't imagine that things get much better than this. Regardless of any genre you listen to. And I feel that way about Pet Sounds, which you don't, which we don't have to get into.
We don't.
But yeah, that's where I think I'm at.
Okay, I was gonna say a point, so I was just getting up there to 9, right in the same vein. I also feel that way. I think.
Okay, cool.
I'm not even sure. See, like, this is where I get in trouble because I get into the subjective aspect. In that I want a little more out of it, but I mean maybe that's really not my place to say.
Okay.
I probably could bump it up to an. You know what? Let's just say final rating for me, kind of blue. We're gonna give it a 9.
Very good. Cool. I like that. That's and that's like I said. You're not really a jazz boy, right?
No, not at all. But like you said, like you have to listen to who is making it, the absolutely stacked amount of people that are on this album.
Yeah.
How prolific it was. Like you said, the rating with Rolling Stone, how many times it hit platinum, even that it's holding up still today. I think if you look at it just like that, I think you're right. I think it has to be 9 or above.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% fair. I think that's reality. And happy to talk about this album, and hopefully we talk about B
Sure.
word witch's brew.
I can't. I'm actually excited for that. Yeah, we'll have to get into that one of these days.
Sounds good. Awesome.
So you were saying you had a little rant going on.
Well, a little bit of a rant, a little bit of an update.
Okay.
I am. I have been, not as intense as the last few months, but newfound fans of the Smiths, of Morrissey, of their music, of their catalog, right?
Yeah.
So Morrissey has announced a tour. He's touring this summer. He's going to be coming into America. He's going to be in America for a few dates. Actually playing at Graceland, at Elvis's home. But I don't know if it's actually there, or if it's like if they have like a theater, or if it's like, the Graceland Theater just happens to be 5 miles away from it. Like I haven't looked into it all that much, but yeah, he's there, which is kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind of cool. So back on the road, I guess he's still selling out certain places in England and Ireland, from what I looked at the website a few weeks ago. So he still got his thing going. But so just recently, you're familiar with Rick Astley?
Yeah.
Never gonna give you up.
Yeah, never gonna give you up. That whole jazz.
His whole career based on basically a meme, right?
Yep.
So Rick Astley is a British musician. I didn't realize this.
I had no idea.
I had no idea either. So he played at the Glastonbury Festival this past weekend.
Okay.
And he played with a band. It's referred to as a secret band, the Blossoms, right?
Okay.
So the Astley and the Blossoms played entirely Smith's covers for the entire set, their show.
You got to be kidding me.
No, isn't that wild?
I would that combination of people playing that. So you're telling me Rick Astley played covers of Morrissey the whole time?
Yeah. And so and Rick Astley sort of had this, like his hair was kind of like messed up in the front. Like he took on the persona of Morrissey.
That's incredible.
It's insane, and I haven't. I have to look at this up on YouTube. I just kind of found this out a few hours ago, just kind of scrolling around on stuff. I haven't seen any of the videos. I haven't seen anything. I don't know if there's anything out there, but a few blog posts I'm reading from different things is that we want Rick Astley as the new Morrissey. Morrissey is dead. We don't want anything to do with Morrissey because he's a racist. He's a bigot. He's no good. He's an old man. Forget this guy. Long live Rick Astley as the new frontman of the Smiths. Morrissey's over. Let's make him the new Morrissey.
No way.
It's wild. Yeah.
This is blasphemous.
Yeah. This one from Pajba. Pajba. Or excuse me, Pajiba. Pajiba. Possibly. So it takes a special kind of raw knobheadishness to squander the titanic amount of goodwill and affection gathered from being a key part of one of the most influential rock bands of all time, serving as the voice of the sensitive, disposed, and illiterate, and to curdle that legacy into a foul concoction of racism and bigotry. And this guy goes on. It's a real shame because the bangers by the Smiths remain bangers, if only they could be enjoyed live without the taint of Morrissey infecting them.
Wow.
That's amazing, huh?
I can't believe I have to look more into Morrissey. People are saying he's basically like Hitler. This is insane.
It's insane. So we talked about Morrissey before. I think Morrissey is a complicated figure.
Yeah.
I think that some of everything he says that's, beyond is beyond. That shouldn't be accepted, right?
Okay.
But Morrissey has always been on as we talked about in our episode, has always been on the fringe of, okay, I'm going to do what I want. I don't care what you say.
Yeah.
The fringe of the counterculture thing. Canceled stadium shows because they served hot dogs. Requests vegan menus. Meat is Murder was the album they had.
Yep.
Supporter of Brexit. Maybe a little anti-immigrant here and there. That's what I can tell. Standing against just general immigration for the UK. Okay, maybe a little extreme.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now.
Yeah, might be.
maybe a little. Just generally doesn't like other people from other races. Or
yeah. And to be fair, he's just saying, he didn't say, he says everybody. It's not a targeted, targeted or very, just one group only is allowed.
Right.
And I guess that he's proud of his British roots and he's anti-royalty. Like he's not like is he extreme? Yes.
Sure.
I to me, free speech and of course we crossed that line. Does it affect? Is it violence? Does it inspire violence?
Yeah. That's the answer that you have to figure out.
And from what I understand, Morrissey fans aren't all that violent. I think that some of these posts I'm reading in this day and age, in this new generation, consider words violence. From what I've read too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So that's a tough thing to grapple with. But to now replace Morrissey with Rick Astley, I think that is just I can't wrap my head around that. And the fact that this was good and it translated well, it's just amazing.
Yeah, that's the most shocking thing to me, that he performed so well as Morrissey, covering the songs that people were clamoring for him. I feel like if there's anything there, maybe we should do an episode on. Is that and see if we can look at this performance, because this is incredible, and a lot of our fans are the Smiths fans. So
yes,
this could translate. This is interesting. I had no clue.
I did. I just happened to stumble upon it, and it's such a, and I think that's the staying power and the popularity of the Smiths that you don't really realize that's not out there all that much until you have moments like this where it's like covered on the internet, where you have people reacting to it. Where Morrissey evidently has enough of a following, still has a following, that he's selling out shows in England still, the UK. I mean, Brexit did pass, so maybe he had something. There's got to be some people out there that agree with the idea that the UK first instead of
exactly
everybody else. I don't know. So
gotta have some fans, for God's sake.
Yeah. So I just thought that was kind of interesting, and it was just very shocking to me.
Well, how about that, Dixon? Thank you for that. That was quite the update.
Yeah.
Did not expect a Morrissey update, but I'm glad that we had it. I'm telling you, I think right after this, I'm going to go watch that
Yeah,
if
I gotta
if
check
there's
that out.
any footage of it.
Yeah, we should. If there is footage, we got to talk about this because you're a Smith's boy, so I'll be curious to see what you think.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna. Yeah, maybe we can.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds good.
Well, that
Well,
was a fun one, guys. Still listening? Please remember to like, subscribe, and you'll get new content, hot takes coming to you every single week from me and your boy Dixon.
we were off last week. Is there anything
Yeah.
you need to say to the fans or say to the listeners?
Oh, here we go.
You know,
I'm
anything you
sorry I
wanna
wasn't
issue,
here. I'm sorry.
issue a public apology. Or
I'll do a post. I'll do guys. We need to talk. It'll a YouTube video. We need to talk. Period.
That's great.
But we're back in the full swing now. Here we are.
Make that happen.
Summer is upon.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it.
Hey guys,
The takes
all
are
right.
hot. The
Yeah.
weather is hot. Sorry.
No, no, that's okay. My bad. No, wait, no. Say scratch that. Starting. You can say that again.
Because he said it's summertime, guys, and I said, the takes are hot. The weather is hot. Join us for the journey. Make us your vacation road trip soundtrack.
Absolutely. Turn us on
Yeah.
anytime you guys want.
You should listen to us and then listen to the albums and the music we talk about and see what you think.
Actually,
Comment
yeah.
below if you agree with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, comment below. But guys, thanks for listening. We will see you next week.
Peace.